visual score study is, how it can help you out when studying a score from a conducting point of view, of course. And well, I'm going to have a few examples to sort that out. So first and foremost, visual score study is something that I put a question in the Facebook group this week, and actually I got zero answers, so which tells me that either you haven't seen the post or you don't really know what visual score study is. Visual score study is nothing but a training. It's a training of the eye of the conductor to look at a score and pinpoint the technical aspects right away. Which means that even before you start looking at it musically, even before you start breaking it down in terms of structure, of phrasing, of harmony, and everything that goes into studying a score, you'll be able, uh, with visual score study, to actually see where to map it, to see where your arms and hands need to be at any given time, based on what's on the page. We've talked about body posture in one of the previous live sessions, and visual score study will tell you where and how your posture. It's not just the posture in terms of how you appear on stage, but also how you move and where you move. I have hello. Oh, I'm soft. I'm too soft. Let's see. Thank you for letting me know. Can you hear me now? Better? Let's see if this is better. I hope it gets better. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, great. Let's put it this way then. Raise the volume a little bit, actually quite a bit. So I hope it's better for everybody. Sorry about that. So in case you haven't heard, I'm just going to give you a brief summary. The visual score study, which is the subject of tonight's live lesson, is a way to look at the score and gather technical information out of it just by looking at it, even before you pick up the baton, or if you do, or before you do anything else. Now, let's start with an example, and we are starting specifically with a page taken, with a couple of pages taken out of the first movement of Mahler's Second Symphony. When you look at this page specifically, we're going to look at the transition between the end of this page and the beginning of the second one. Why? Because there is an immediate, as soon as you look at the page, you see that there is an immediate change, big change on the page. We go from piano, pianissimo, triple pianissimo, slowing down, to a schnell. This is the first thing that pops up. So there's a change in the orchestration and there's a change in dynamic. There's a big dramatic effect that Mahler has set up. So in order to, and that is one thing that that pops up immediately. Talking about that, since there is a tempo changing, of course, you'll know right away that on the fourth beat of the last bar of this page, you'll need to give a strong upbeat in a new tempo. Now here's there's a trick here. You actually have to put a little bit of a hold on the third beat of this last bar, in order to have a fourth beat in the right tempo, so the preparation of the new tempo is correct. Also, another thing that comes out is the orchestration. We're going from flutes and, well, woodwinds. As far as woodwinds, the horns are have already stopped playing. We have the bassoon, but the orchestration gets thinner and thinner in this page, and then all of a sudden we have a fortissimo, triple Fs in the strings. The strings, except for the double bass, are all, and partially the cellos, they're playing in their lower register. Everything here is really low. So this, from a visual point of view, will tell you one other thing. What is your position going to be? You're going to have to be at your waist level. Your arms need to be all the way down to your belly, basically, because that's where the sound is. That's how this how you get the weight and this particular type of rivet sound. Also, if you look still by just by looking at the score, the bassoon in the four bars to the end of the page have a pianissimo. Then they have a triple pianissimo. So that will tell you that, for instance, if you're conducting the bassoons, let's say with your left hand, then you're gonna have, starting with the diminuendo with the piano and then diminuendo of the flutes, then you're gonna have to come back towards yourself in order to make the pianissimo. You can do everything with one hand, and this will also give you a chance to prepare your right hand, to have your right hand in the correct position down here already to start the strings. After that, if we move on, after we have the strings on the first bar of the Schnell, the fourth beat, we have a fortissimo with the tam-tam and with a bunch of other instruments still in the low register. Again, you look at the score, you can immediately split. See that you can split your hands. So you conduct, let's say, the strings with your right hand, and you have your left hand prepared for the fortissimo on the fourth beat. This is a, let's say, it's a technical exercise, but more than an exercise, it's a training. It's a training because after a while that you see this, you immediately recognize different parts of the score, and you immediately know that in one part you need to, you can, not that you need, but you can split your hands because you already know that it's going to be more effective, and that you have, the composer has given you an opportunity to also showcase yourself in and your own technique, which, by the way, in turns helps the musicians and the music ultimately. Here's another example. A while ago I did an episode of Conducting Pills of Romeo and Juliet. Now this is a perfect another perfect example of how visual score study works. You look at the score, what do you see? You have four players, two clarinets and two bassoons. The tempo is andante non tanto quasi moderato, which means that is not so fast. Okay. Now you can decide to conduct this in 2 or in 4 depending on your idea of andante, or if you put the andante non tanto, or if you put more the accent on moderato, depending on what you think. But nevertheless, whether it's 2 or in 4, you immediately see a few other things. First of all, there's no crescendo until bar 4. Second, the crescendo in bar 4 sustains the sound. There is no diminuendo there. And there's no diminuendo 2 bars after that. It's actually poco più forte, but then the bar after the poco più forte, there's no diminuendo there, so you're gonna have to sustain the sound. And then you're gonna have to come back for the piano entrance on the bar after that. On top of that, since the music is written starting at the beginning in half notes, whether you're in 2 or in 4, it's convenient and it helps the players if you pulse in between. And on top of that, since you have only wind players, the breathing that you have to breathe with them in a very in a way that it goes with the clarinets and the bassoons, which of course is different if you had, I don't know, the beginning of the second movement of Dvorak 9 Symphony, where you have a crawl with the breath. They need more time. So in this case, you've looked at one line, at one page, sorry, of the score, and you already know that also you're going to have to be placed. You're going to have to place yourself between your waist and your chest level. Why? Because that's the direction that the players are in, and that's where the music is written. It's not written all the way up here. It's written somewhere in the mid-low register. Now, if you put your hand somewhere in here, then you make eye contact with the players, and at the same time, they can see your hand. So you have a double contact, the hand and the eyes. And then you breathe. Pulse. Pim, 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 pam, pim, pam, crescendo. Pim, off. Pum, pum, pim, pum, pim, pum. And you can either close it or just go down on the next beat, but then you come back for the piano. There's one other thing that pops up here. If you look at the line, it goes up, which means that you can actually do a little bit of registration in that line and move your hand slightly up in order to follow the line. This helps not just in following the music per se, but this also helps with the intonation, because you're sustaining the line going up with the players. By the way, on this topic, registration is really useful also when you conduct singers, in helping them with the line and with the intonation that goes up or down. Another example, this is the minuet from Haydn Symphony number 93. Now you look at the score. Let's just take the first system without even going into the second one. Take the first system, and what do you see? Okay, let's see. First of all, is this in? It's a minuetto put out there as a title, and then it says allegretto in at the top for the speed of the tempo, for the tempo. However, is this in 3 or is this in 1? That depends whether you prefer it a little faster or a little slower, what your idea is. However, looking at the score, it seems like there's a heavy accent on the downbeat given by the sforzandi in the first 2 bars. Now the same pattern repeats afterwards, and there's another pattern that repeats the accent, then there's a slur, then there's a dotted note, and then it's the same again. Third thing, the line goes down, goes this way, and then goes up. That is also an indication that you can take to register the line. For me, given the harmonic structure of the piece, and given where the accents are, I would say this is in a slow 1 or a large 1. What you can do, you can either make sort of a shape of a 3, or better, in my opinion, is actually taking care of the slur and the dotted note, in which case it becomes pam piram pam piram pam pa 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 pa. Let me show it to you slower. Pam pira pam pira pam pa 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 pa. That means that when you do this, you're actually taking care of the slur between the C and the D. You're making the sforzando, and then you're making the staccato on the third beat. And this is all just by looking at the score. This is the first impact. If you go on, then you also see that there's a there's significant entrance of the horns, trumpets, and timpani on the third bar of the piece, which for instance can tell you one other thing. Let's say you start the piece with your right hand, then you leave your left hand free to cue that specific entrance. And this will give more importance to the entrance per se. You do not have to force a forte into trumpets, timpani, and horns, which then in turn causes troubles in balancing the whole thing. And you respect exactly what it is that's in the music. And from the articulation point of view, still, let's say we're still with your right hand for the beginning, then you know that you have the first, okay, aside from the first beat, which is the upbeat for everybody, but aside from that, then you have legato, staccato, and then you have the third bar, which is all in staccato, which means that you can just point it and that's it. You don't need to do anything. You point it, pum. They will play staccato without any confusion on of any kind in any way. And if you move on, then you'll see that everything more or less goes in the same way. Excuse me. Now, this is another interesting example. This is the last movement of Dvorak Ninth Symphony. Again, this can be conducted in 2 or in 4. Your preference. Allegro con fuoco. It depends on where you want to stress or put the accent. However, what do you see at first sight? Of course, the tempo marking Allegro con fuoco and the metronome marking at 132. 152. Then you see that the scoring is only in the strings. They're all playing in unison, at least for 2 bars. With the octaves, of course, of the cellos and basses. Then you see the dynamic is fortissimo. Then you see the accents on the third bar. And then you see the line rising up with a crescendo to the sforzatissimo of bar 2, 4, 5, 6. So, just by looking at this, you see that where should you stand? What should be your body position? Where should you be ready to conduct? Down, because the music is down here. The action is happening in the lower register of the scale. It's not up here. If you do this up here, you're gonna have no weight. If there's no weight, this beginning is pretty much useless. Second, you have the third and the fourth beat of the first 2 bars are empty. So the best thing to do in this case, especially because you have a dotted rhythm on the first beat of the first 2 bars, the best thing to do in this case is actually to do, even if then you want to go into 2, or if you think it in 2, is actually to give a little bit of a stop on the second beat. Piram, piram. So if you do 1, 2, 1, 2. Of course, down here I can show it to you. Otherwise, it'll go out of the frame of the camera. But if you do this down to your belly, then it becomes really heavy, and it becomes crystal clear when everybody should stop. Once you get to bar 3, then you can increase the weight of it and show the accent by putting even more weight on your gesture. And then what you can do on bar 5 and 6, you can actually do, since it's all ties, one after the other, tara, 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 tira, tira. You do circles. When you do circles Remember to always pulse. Pulse, 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 pulse. If you just do a circle like this, nobody's going to understand anything. But if you pulse, and in this case, if you stop, I'm taking, of course, the first violin's line as reference. Tira, pira, 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 pira. You do this kind of movement. It's very effective for the orchestra because it you showing exactly what it is that they're playing, and it also showing not just the slur, but the fact that they have to stop because there's a 16 rest in that. Of course, you can help yourself if you wish to, in this case, because you look at the score and you see a crescendo. And when there is a crescendo, what do? You actually raise your for instance, your left hand up in order to show the crescendo. And you can combine the two things. But then again, this, if you look at this score for the first time, you can immediately see all of these things: body posture, where are your arms, where are your hands, what are your hands supposed to do, and when is that it is, and when are you supposed, I don't know, maybe to split hands or to change them. In this case, it would be in the page after this, where you have the big entrance of the trumpets and the main thing. I want to show you one last example, because last week I did an episode of Conducting Pills on Beethoven Fourth. And when you have this change from the introduction to the allegro part of the allegro vivace part of the exposition, you have quite a few really interesting things. If you look at the first system, and starting on the last bar of the first system, actually let's do one thing. Let's start before that. Let's start at the beginning of the first system. Everything is going down, right? There's a diminuendo. Registration is going down because the line is going down. You're going towards the low register. So if you take, you just look at that, you follow the line, tira, tirarim, and you get all the way down. This way you have a chance, you give yourself a chance to move up again and make the crescendo on the last bar of the system. Pim, 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 and then the fortissimo. Pim. Now, what do you see in the second system? Everybody is playing, but then you have to give a really clear upbeat on the fourth beat, where everybody comes off the dotted rhythm, the slurred dotted rhythm. And of course the violins have the quintuplets. Bar after that, you have the downbeat, and then you have nothing. That means you can just stop. So you get to the bar, p, click, and pulse, ram, and then you stop. Silence, nobody moves. Everybody's waiting for an upbeat on the fourth beat, which means you don't need to beat 2 and 3. That is completely useless. You just count them, and people will count. They know how to count to 4. Same thing for the bar after that. Do, taram. And once you get to the allegro vivace, you have this slurred 16s figures. Taram, 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 pa, 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 pa. And what do you see? You see exactly the same thing. You have to give an upbeat here, which of course this would be, since you're in 2, it would be on the second beat. Then you have to give an upbeat again here on the second beat. But the fact of the matter is that you have also legato, slurred here, and staccato, and then legato, staccato, legato, staccato, legato, staccato, legato, staccato. That will tell you that you can do circle and stop. Rum, 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 rum. And that once you get, again, look at the score. What's happening on the second to last bar of the first system of this page, where the theme begins, basically, the B flat part of it at least. There's a forte piano, and then pa 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 pa. It's all staccato, right? Beethoven takes great care of it by writing eighth rests in between. So if you think of it in a visual or in a technical way, you already know that you have circle, stop, circle, stop, circle, stop, circle, stop, circle for the last triplet, and then you have a forte piano, which means you're not gonna go anywhere, you're just gonna stay where you land. And it's piano, which means that then you can just do it by moving your wrist. You just stay here, you'll get the piano automatically. You move your wrist and nothing else, and you'll get the piano and the staccato that you need. And then if you go on, what do you see? Oh, the next thing, the next event is the oboe is coming in with staccato, and then the oboe, the clarinets, and the bassoons are coming in with a line, with the downward line, a line that moves down, legato. And that already visually gives you a perfect opportunity to think, okay, I'm doing the slur part, and then with my right hand, for instance, I get the forte piano and the tutti with the staccato, pipa 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 pipa, and then I can have my left hand free for the oboe and for the rest of the woodwinds when they come in. Also, where is the line going? It's going down. It's legato, so I can do a little bit of registration. You can even do it in 2 bars. You don't need to do 1 2 1 2. This visual training, this visual exercise, it also trains you to look at the music for what it is and how to do it technically. So if you have the tools, if you learn the tools of how all these things come together, then you look at the score and you immediately say, oh right, yeah, there's a staccato. You don't even think about it actually after a while. There's a legato, there's a staccato, there's a forte piano, then the line goes down. Oh, look at that. There's the bassoons and the other thing, and the other woodwinds. They have a nice line going down. I don't need to do anything. I can just register the line and land on the B flat. So these are 5 examples I wanted to show to you tonight. And now I'm really open to questions. I actually think that this way of looking at the score can improve a great deal your conducting, but it also makes it faster, because you look at the score and you can immediately recognize certain technical aspects, certain keys, certain things that will help you study, basically. So now, please, the floor is yours for any questions that you might have on this subject. You can type them in the chat, of course. I have the chat right here, and I will actually tell out loud which questions are coming through. Okay, it seems like there are no questions. Oh yes, there is a question. What is visual in distinction to? What is the alternative? Well, visual is, how do you study a score normally? Yes, you look at it and you start, of course, putting together structure, phrasing, orchestration, and everything else. But what is the relationship that you visually have with your technique? Visual score study means the visual is in relation to the technical aspect of the score rather than the musical one. Of course, the two then collide because I mean, you're not gonna do. You can't conduct a score just technically. Otherwise, it's just like same as you cannot play any piece of music just technically. Then it's not music. Then it's an exercise. But when you look at the score, you also have to look at it from a technical point of view, because when you get on the podium, you have to be prepared not just from a musical point of view but from a technical point of view. This means that you have to have a clear map in your head of where your hands need to be, or your arms need to be at any given time. This will help you not just to this helps you in a plethora of different ways. First of all, it gives you confidence because you know exactly what it is that you're doing, also from a technical point of view, and you're not just winging it or hoping that the orchestra will understand, but you actually know that what you're doing they'll understand. Second, if anything happens during the performance, and something always does for one reason or another, something always does. Even something stupid like a player turns a page and for some reason the score falls down, and there's a moment in which then you have to retake reins of whatever it is. If you know exactly what you're doing, you can also switch immediately to go and catch the problem and fix the problem that's happening in that moment, and then go back to your own map. What is the alternative? The alternative is not connecting the music with your gestures, which means that most likely you're going to do patterns for like half an hour and completely ignore what it is that's written on the page. If you have a good technique as a conductor, you do pretty much everything that's on the page. That means that you're going to have to do slurred gestures when there's a slur, that you have to show the staccato when there's a staccato, that you have to show, of course, the crescendo, the sforzando, the accents, the diminuendi, the change of tempo, of course. When you give an upbeat for a change of tempo, like we've seen in the first example with the Mahler score, then you'll also see one other thing. What happened in that on that page? Everything is pianissimo, goes down, and then all of a sudden there's a surprise. What are you going to do? If you don't relate that to your technique, you're going to give it away, because you're just going to do a big gesture because there is a fortissimo with 3 Fs. However, if you look at it visually, you also see that Mahler has prepared a surprise there, and that it's your job as a conductor to hide that surprise from the audience. And it doesn't matter that that symphony is 100 years old, and it doesn't matter that maybe 90%, 99% even of the audience will know that that moment is coming. There will always be somebody in the audience for whom that moment is a surprise because they've never heard it. So if you look at the score, you see, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to come back. So you connect what's on the page visually with what you're going to have to do visually and technically on the podium. I'm gonna have to come back, I'm gonna have to go down because the registration tells me that it's here, it's down here, and I'm gonna have to hide it from the audience, which means that I can just use a quick snap in front of my body instead of doing a big gesture where everybody is going to see in advance what's going to happen. That takes the surprise away. So the visual part is simply due to the fact that you actually look at the score and you turn what you look at the score into technical information right away just by looking at it. I hope I answered your question. Is there another question coming up? Okay. Oh, well, actually, let me ask you guys one thing because I did talk about it, but I'm not sure to what extent you are familiar with the concept of registration. Do you guys know what registration is when it comes to conducting technique, of course? A simple yes or no will suffice. Okay, there's no yes. So I'm taking this as a no. I think so. Okay. Um, well, let me explain it for, or just refresh for somebody who is not so sure of what it is. Registration is following the line as it's written up and down. So imagine you have the piano keyboard. Right? The piano keyboard is horizontal. You take the piano keyboard and you turn it vertically. And then at that point, you're gonna have your pitches in vertical. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do. At which point you can follow, you can map that to what's on the page, and with your hand you can follow the line either going up or going down. That doesn't mean that you have to have, of course, huge extent of your gesture. Very little sometimes is enough, and sometimes you can actually go down and down even more depending on what the music is. But that is what registration is. Very helpful and effective way also of breaking patterns, because you just do you pulse where you need, but you pulse in vertical without doing 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 or whatever that is. All right. Before we go, unless there are other questions, I want to tell you a couple more things. One is that on Sunday, this coming Sunday at at 12 p.m. New York time, which will be, since there is a daytime changing between Saturday and Sunday, it will be 6 p.m. Amsterdam time. I will be a guest on a live podcast that I will put a link in the group, of course, where we will talk about conducting. What else? I also want to tell you that, first of all, thank you for showing up and for being part of this live session, and thank you for also being part of the Facebook group, which is growing and increasing. Now, on a second, on a different thing, you guys know that I also have a Patreon page, and there's a subscription tiers right now, which includes a 20% discount for the next 10-15 days on the Pass the Baton course at the iClassical Academy. So you can check the page out and go from there. So I don't think there's any more questions. So thank you very much for this. If you think of anything else, just put a question in the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed this, please, I would really appreciate it if you if you posted something on the Facebook group for the others to see as well. And we'll see you next time. If you have also, by the way, I always say this always goes for me without saying, but if you have any suggestion, anything that you would like to know, anything that you think it would be useful for a live session, then just let me know. We had one last week after a suggestion of one of the members of the group. We had one last week on Debussy's Prelude de l'après-midi d'une femme, where we did the entire analysis of the piece live. So if you have any suggestions, just drop them in the group, and we'll go from there. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice evening and have a nice weekend. And if you have if you have time, please just show up take a look on Sunday at the live session I will be on. Thank you. Bye bye.